Welcome back, everybody. I appreciate you being here, those who are watching live, those who are listening, and all that kind of stuff. I appreciate every single one of you. Today's episode is especially for you in particular. If you've maybe hit that time where you just feel like motivation is low, maybe momentum has started to die off, maybe some of those bad habits have started creeping back in, and the good habits have slided away, nowhere to be seen. This is for you. It's also for you if things are going pretty well and you're like, I'm pretty pleased, I'm staying productive, I'm remaining positive, I'm making progress, but I don't want this to stop, then this episode is going to be great for you too. So this is going to be my 6 ways of how you can get back on track. So when we're at that point where we're like, oh, do you know what? Maybe it was like new year, new me, and we started really positive. We got really focused. We set some great goals. We adopted some fantastic habits. And then we got to that stage where I knew it was too good to be true. Here we go again. Started to fall off the wagon, as people say. So here's the 6 steps. So step number 1. Step number 1 is about getting the mindset right, making sure you have the correct approach. So step number 1, I want you to quit the all in versus all out mentality. Let me know in the comments if this has been you, that kind of all or nothing approach. I know for me, this was a huge problem that held me back for so many years. You know, we talk about those New Year's resolutions. We can be in that position where we're all hyped up, we're motivated, we've got clear goals, and then it's like, I'm going to smash it. I'm going to get into the best shape of my life. I'm going to make more money than I've ever made. I'm going to build an empire, and everything's going to be amazing. And then a few weeks in, it's like, I'm exhausted, I'm burnt out, I'm tired. Then we go to the all out mentality, which is like, I've done too much. I need to chill out. So this is the first thing I really advise you to shift your mindset on. Let's lose that all or nothing approach when it comes to your habits, when it comes to your routines, and think about it like this. The goal is to just have more productive, positive days than we do unproductive days. That is it. That's the goal. It's not to be perfect. It's not to be smashing all our goals every single day and be superhuman. That's an unrealistic expectation, and it's just not useful. In actual fact, I think it's pretty damaging, pretty dangerously toxic. So the goal is just to go, not every day is going to be perfect, and that's totally cool, but I just want to have more positive, productive days than I do unproductive, negative days. And what we want to do with that is stop beating ourselves up. If you have fallen off track and you've had a few days or a few weeks where the good habits have started to slide, it's absolutely fine. It's only a few days or it's only a few weeks. It's not a lot of time. Forgive yourself for that. I'm human. I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. That's okay. Stop beating yourself up. And don't come at this now from a place of anger or frustration or guilt. Because again, that's all heightened emotions, which therefore means it's not sustainable, whatever you do. So this is the first step. Let's remove that mindset, that approach, that attitude of being like, I've got to be amazing and every day I've got to be amazing and otherwise I'm a failure, I'm a loser, I'm a waster. And what I would say is this. Have this clear non-negotiable, okay? This is for everybody. This is my advice. Have this simple non-negotiable. Never allow more than 48 hours to pass where you're not sticking to good habits, okay? So you can have a bad day. You can have a day that's just like a write-off. Oh, a lot happened. It was stressful. My habits slipped, fine. But then really, really focus on the next day getting back on track. But worst case scenario, if you don't get back on track the next day, the non-negotiable is, that is it, 48 hours and I'm done. I am back on track. That is like the worst case scenario, is you give yourself 48 hours. And having that little bit of a non-negotiable in your head just starts to flip the mentality. It's like, oh, I told myself actually from time to time, I'm going to have an off day. And from time to time, that might bleed into a second day. But I remember, non-negotiable is we don't go into day 3 like that. So come on, we've had 2 days. Let's get back on track. Whereas what I've experienced a lot of people do is they have a couple of bad days and the mentality goes the exact opposite way. Oh, well, I knew I couldn't stick to it. 2 bad days, bollocks to it. Might as well have a 3rd shit day and just keep it going. Instead of just going, Life happens. It was an unrealistic expectation to be smashing all my goals and being superhuman 7 days a week after week after week. That's not normal. It's not realistic. That's never going to happen for most of us. So yeah, I had a bad day, or I had a day that wasn't perfect. I had a couple of days that wasn't perfect. That's fine. You know, there's times where you may be scheduled really busy, you may be traveling a lot and you're not in your routine. These things are going to happen, and that's great. You don't want to be a slave to your routine, so you never travel and you never things and do different things. But with that, naturally, sometimes the good slide, and that's fine. But just have that approach that it's okay, but you've got that non-negotiable in there as well. 48 hours, that's the rule. Let me know in the comments if this sounds good. This is the rule. 48 hours, non-negotiable. At that point, it's a cut-off point. I can allow myself then to not beat myself up for a bad day or two. So that's the first step, is change the mindset, change the attitude towards the habits, towards the routines, towards the things that you want to be doing that are going to help you move forward. Because let's face it, if you have once a month a bad 48 hours or a bad day every couple of weeks, things like that, that can still be a frigging awesome month where overall there's massive progress and you're being super productive. But we don't think like this. We go all in for 7 to 14 days, get exhausted, allow a few bad habits to slip in. Before we know it's been 3-4 days. Oh, it just was a one-off thing. I've tried to be positive. I tried to be more productive. I tried to be better, but it just slipped. And then day 4 becomes day 5, day 6. And before you know it, starts to be 6 weeks, 8 weeks of bad habits consistently. Imagine if you just flipped that and allowed yourself a couple of days from time to time and then just got back on track. Imagine that compounded over the year. Overall, that's going to be pretty bloody consistent and pretty bloody awesome. Yeah? So please adopt this. If you are like I am and somebody that's lived a lot of your life with this all in versus all out mentality, it's time to stop. It's time to change that approach. And it's time to get focused on, I'm never going to be all in 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's unrealistic. So I'm going to try and be as close to all in, maybe 89% spot on most of the time. Then I'm going to allow myself to just be human and recognize shit happens. It's fine. But my rule is we don't allow it for more than maximum top end 48 hours. We get back on track. That's number 1, change the mindset. Okay, step number 2 is make the bad habits become harder to do. And one of the best ways we can make the bad habits harder to do is eliminate the triggers. So first and foremost, we've got to identify what those triggers are and then remove them. So the obvious thing is, like, for example, if we don't want to eat as many chocolate biscuits, how do we eliminate the trigger? Like, remove the chocolate biscuits from the house. Stop buying the chocolate biscuits. Or if you've got family members that are happy to keep on munching on chocolate biscuits, put them in a drawer that you never go. And ask the family to respect that. Like, put it in a drawer you never go. So you're not going to see it. Because if you see it, you get the craving. If you get the craving, it becomes a lot harder to avoid. So that is the second step, is identify the triggers for the bad habits and make them harder to do by eliminating those triggers. But the triggers are not necessarily just physical things. The triggers can be people you're spending time with. The triggers can be the television that you're watching, the media that you're watching, the social media accounts that you follow, the podcasts you listen to, and all these kind of things. Really start to identify what are the things that trigger negative, bad habits, and what are the things that trigger the positive, good quality habits that I want to stick to. So it's very, very simple. Once you've identified who those people are, what the environments are, what the social media platforms are, and the accounts you follow are, and the television you watch, all these things, and you start to recognize where the triggers are for the bad habits, remove them. Literally, path of least resistance. Make it easy to avoid them. And the good habits you want to do, what are the things you can do to trigger you to have more positive habits? So when I speak about a lot with this is, if you want to drink more water and you want to encourage yourself to have the positive habit of more drinking and more hydration, have glasses of water, bottles of water all around that you fill up the night before or whatever. So you're constantly getting the trigger and seeing it. What was it that I've done that today with something? I'm trying to think of a different example because there was something today and I was like, oh, I know exactly what it was. Blue light blocking glasses. I've bought some blue light blocking glasses and I just had them in a case in my bag and I would consistently forget to wear them. And I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, I really want to limit my exposure to, social media screens and my laptop and things like that because I'm on it a lot. So I grabbed them out of the box, put them by the side of where I am here. And I've been wearing them a lot throughout the day. And then what I'll do is when I go home, I'm going to put them by my bed. So if I go on my phone for a little bit, stick them on, I'm going to see the trigger for the positive habit. It becomes much easier to do it. So that's the second thing. Identify those triggers, remove the bad triggers, increase exposure to the good triggers. Okay, so that's the second thing. The third thing is remove stress out of your life. I talk about this a lot. Learn to have boundaries. Learn to say no. Think about this logically, right? Why is it easy to get into some good habits in that bit between like Christmas and New Year or like at the beginning of January? Because generally, most of us are not at work. Generally, we have a lot of free time. We've done a lot of chilling out, a lot of celebrating, a lot of socializing with the family. So now we're like, oh, I need to change I need to change stuff. I've ate too much. I've drank too much. I've been lazy. Now I want to get back into some good habits again. But we do that where we're not back at work and we're still in that downtime period. Think about it logically. The reason it gets really, really hard to stick to the positive habits is because you've got stresses in your life. Family stresses, stresses with children, stresses with your relationship, stresses with work, your career, stresses with your goals, stresses with trying to stick to healthy eating and exercise and all this kind of stuff. So the brutal truth and the hard kind of word that you need to have with yourself is take stuff out of your life. Don't just keep putting new things in and saying yes to people and saying yes because you don't want to let somebody down. Say no. Stop trying to achieve 10 different things at once and just try and achieve 3 to 4 maximum. I promise you, this is one of the most valuable pieces of advice I believe I can give you. The reason you are going to struggle to stick to good, positive habits and being productive is because you're trying to do too much and you've got too much stress and you're not having enough sleep. Strip it back. And that might be hard. And it might be that you have to almost feel like you're taking a step back before you go forwards. But if you can prioritize getting good quality sleep every single night, having a good evening routine, I promise you when you're getting the sleep that your body needs, you're going to be feeling so much better. You're going to be thinking more clearer. You're going to be sharp. You're going to have more energy. Your mood's going to be improved. And when you're in that state of mind, becomes a lot bloody easier to have good positive habits in place, right? When you are overstressed, overworked, when you're arguing, when you're not getting enough sleep and all that kind of stuff, becomes bloody hard to have good, healthy, positive routines in place. When you're underslept, overstressed, overworked, you want the sugary treats. You want to avoid the gym. You don't want to do the positive stuff. So that's the third point. Be really honest with yourself. Do you want to finish this year feeling like you've remained really consistent on some positive habits? If so, that's going to mean that you're not just constantly adding things into your life. You're going to need to start to take things out. And you're going to need to look at what are the things that are providing me unnecessary stress that I need to reduce. So point number 3, reduce stress. So those kind of first 3 steps, ultimately, they're about quitting stuff. So step number 1 was about quitting that attitude, that mindset of all in versus all out, that all or nothing approach, and shifting that. The second thing was about eliminating triggers, the things that are going to trigger you for the bad habits. And the third thing was about reducing stress. They're the first three things. So like I just said there, if you've fallen out of good habits and bad habits have crept back in, the first three pieces of advice are not to start doing anything different or adding things. It's about reducing things and changing things first before you do anything different. Now let's look at actually taking different action. So step number 4, my advice is this: pick just 1 to 2, maybe maximum, simple habits that you're going to decide right now off the back of listening to this immediately that you are going to commit to doing. So rather than saying, my diet's got shit, I've stopped exercising, I'm not getting enough steps in, I've not been as productive at work, I'm not scheduling my days, I'm not planning ahead, I'm back on track with it all, bollocks to that, right? Instead of trying to do it all, that's still the all or nothing mentality. Pick 1 to 2 things, maximum, and just commit, decide for however long. I would say minimum 7 days, but maybe ideally more like 14 to 28 days, something like that, where it's like, all I'm going to focus on bringing back in is this 1 or 2 good things. Then what I would do is add accountability to that 1 or 2 things. So I'm going to give you a real life example of what I've done right now. So at the beginning of this year, I was like, I've put on a little bit of extra body fat over Christmas and the last few months. I just know that I've, not been as strict with a lot of my habits. So it's like, right, I'm not going to go like full on calorie counting, like training 6 times a week and all that kind of stuff. I was like, I'm going to focus on 2 things. That is it. Number 1 is steps. I know that I can have some super long days here. By the way, not Steps the band. Tragedy. We're not on about that steps. I mean, just the steps I get in a day. I realize that I often can sit here for long, long days producing content, coaching people on Zoom, in business meetings, emails, admin, that kind of thing. My step count can quite often fall very, very low to like 2,000 to 3,000 steps a day. So I was like, here's the thing. This is the first thing I'm going to focus on. My goal is 10,000 steps a day. However, my non-negotiable, and this has been really key to me this month, my non-negotiable is do not fall below 7,000. That's been so useful. On those days when things haven't gone to plan and it's been super busy and I'm looking and I'm like, oh my God, it's 9 o'clock at night. I'm so tired and I've only got 4,000 steps done. If I had to hit 10,000, that would be so much more overwhelming. And the likelihood of me not doing it and just calling it a day, going home to bed, would be pretty high. But if I'm on 4,000, and I'm like, I want to do 10, but the non-negotiable is don't fall below 7. I'm like, come on, we can do a couple of thousand. Versus thinking I've got like another 6,000 to do. Like, come on, we can do a couple of thousand. And I'm happy to report that in the month of January, at the moment, at the time of recording this, I've hit a couple of days where I've done 10,000. Today, I think I've done 11,000. Yesterday, I did 12,000. So I've been hitting those high numbers. But the really positive bit is I have never fallen below 7,000 on any day. So that's the first thing, is steps. And the second thing is just focusing on quality nutrition. So not calorie counting, not restrictive, not thinking, oh, you can't have this, you can't have that. Just literally going every single meal, have I got, quality nutrients like veg, good fruits, proteins, things like that. And just focusing on the quality of what I'm eating every single day. They're the 2 things I'm focused on. Within that, I've got a goal of hitting a certain amount of body fat loss. And so they're my 2 things that I'm focusing on every single day this month. But then I've added accountability. So if you remember, that's what I said, is pick 1 or 2 things and then say 14 days, 28 days, whatever, I'm focusing on these 2 things. Then I'm going to add accountability. So what I've done, phoned up my cousin who's a personal trainer. I'm like, I want to book in with you 4 weeks. Well, what I did is at the beginning of the month, took all my measurements, saw where we're at, decided to commit to these 2 things, set a simple goal of this is what you want to achieve by doing these 2 things. Is it achievable? Yeah, as long as you stick to it. And then I'm booked in with him again in a few weeks' time to go, right, boom, here's the accountability. Let's look at what we've done. So I'm not just doing it on my own. And I promise you now, there has been certain days where I have been exhausted from working very, very hard, doing some days 17-hour days. And I did not want to go out and get that extra couple of thousand steps in. But the accountability of going, I said to him, I will do this every day and I'm going to show him the evidence in a few weeks' time, made me do it. And that's fine. Sometimes paying for accountability, having professional support and accountability is the difference that makes the difference between if you were just trying to do it on your own. And I myself am practicing what I preach. So that's the 4th step. Don't now, if you've fallen off the good habits, try and now reintroduce 17 positive habits. Instead, my advice, pick 1 to 2, commit to a time frame that you're going to consistently do those 1 to 2, and add some accountability. Have a set date that you're like, right, I want to check in, or whatever it is, whether it be accountability buddy, coaches, things like that. Step number 5. So if anybody has read the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, you'll know that this is something that's featured in there. You'll know that I also speak about this book a lot because I think it's bloody awesome. If you haven't read it, you should read it. If you have read it, read it again. Read it over and over again. I think I've read it at least 3 times, maybe more. But step number 5 is stop putting your emphasis on achievements. Stop putting your emphasis on goals. Stop putting your emphasis on results. Instead, shift that emphasis onto identity. So instead of going like, I want to achieve this year, like this amount of money or this amount of fat loss, like they're great things to have. I'm not saying don't get clarity on them. Do have clear, specific goals. Know what you want to do and by when. But once you've set that, once you've had your goal setting session and you're like, that's what I'm going to achieve, fine. Then you just got to focus on what's the things that I need to do to get there. And then within that, put the emphasis and the energy every single day onto identity. And what that's about is stop being goal orientated and more being identity orientated. In other words, who do I value being? Instead of putting the emphasis on, right, I've said I need to now achieve this amount of fat loss by this day, even though that's the goal and you focus on that and that's fine, now put most your energy, time, and emphasis on the goal is to be a healthy person. The goal is I am a fit person. I'm an active person. And I'm going to focus on that every single day. So you can start saying, like, I'm a healthy person. That is who I am. So therefore, what does a healthy person do? What do? I get my steps in. No excuses. It's part of who I am. It's part of what I do. You know, if your goal is to write a book and be an author, then the goal is to focus every single day on being a writer. What does a writer do every single day? If you want to read more books, the goal is to be a reader, not say, I'm going to put all my energy onto, I need to finish this book. I need to finish this book. Just put the focus on who am I? I'm a reader. It's part of who I am. It's what I do. So let's read a couple of chapters or a couple of pages. Really shifting the focus onto identity, I believe, can be an absolute game changer. I think for a lot of people, they know the goal, they know what they need to do to get there. But the key is, if you are taking action that is not aligned with who you believe you are, you will never, ever stick to it. So if you're going to the gym, but in your head, you're like, I'm not a gym person. This isn't me. I don't enjoy this. I don't like it. I'm the sort of person that avoids the gym. I'm the sort of person that just likes to eat chocolate cake. I'm not this person. If that's the actual dialogue in your mind, whether it's kind of really conscious or more unconscious, if you don't believe you're a gym person, a healthy person, you can maybe do what I say, have a holiday from your habits. You can have a fortnight off eating cake and have a couple of weeks in the gym, but you'll never ever stick to it because your ego gets involved and go, what are we doing here? This isn't us. This is not who we are. This isn't what we do. This isn't what we like. What are you doing? So it's not enough to know the goal, and it's not enough to know the actions you need to take. The real deep, important, imperative work, in my opinion, is the mindset work, is challenging those beliefs and working on that daily, whether that be with positive power affirmations of like, I am the sort of person who doesn't quit when he's tired. I quit when I'm done. These kind of things, like these identity statements. I'm the sort of person that doesn't quit just because it's got hard. I keep going. I'm the sort of person that gives more than I receive. I focus on over delivering to people, giving good energy. These are the kind of things to really focus on working on. Not just that, oh, I need to go to the gym. Oh, I hate the gym. If you're doing that and that's your mindset, quit. Just don't even bother. It's only going to last a couple of weeks anyway. You might as well just quit early and open the cake and the wine now. Get on with it. It's not going to work. It's not going to be sustainable. So the real important bit is, who do I want to be? Who's the person I want to be? Not the what I want to get and what I want to achieve and what the outcome is. Who do I want to be? Who do I value being? Like if you was watching yourself in like a super superhero film, what would you be? I don't know, the loser, the person that's always needing rescuing and saving because you make excuses and you got a negative mind or whatever? Or do you want to be the superhero? The person who's always there, the person that's always finding solutions to the problem, the person that fights for good no matter what's going on, no matter how hard and challenging it is. Like, I know it might be a bit of a weird analogy, that, but like, who's the person you want to be? How do you want to see yourself? How do you want to act? And remove some of that emphasis, because this is what happens is often we set those goals. It's super motivating at the start, but then we realize the actions we need to take to get there are really, really hard. And we just get demotivated and go, oh, it's too unrealistic. It's too far in the future. Oh, I can't be bothered. There's a great quote that I saw, and it was, the person that enjoys walking will walk a lot further than the person who enjoys the destination. So if there's a person going, oh, I just need to walk over there, that's where I need to get to, they'll probably get there and stop. The person who's just like, I just enjoy walking, it's part of who I am, it's part of what I do, will keep walking, and they'll get a lot further in life. And I thought it was a great analogy. So focus more on the process, and within that process, who is the person I need to be? What's the identity that I need to adopt? What are the things that I value about me as a person? Do I value being lazy? Do I value quitting when things get tough and giving up? Do I value giving in at the first hurdle and the first challenge? Or do I value the opposite? Do I value that I am a healthy person? I am an action taker. I'm not the sort of person that quits when it gets tough. I am a reader. I am a writer. Whatever those identities are that you need to focus on. And the sixth and final step, I cannot emphasize this one enough. Get help. If you're watching this now or you're listening to this now, how much are you consistently doing on your own? How much are you trying to do this alone? And why? Like, who are you kidding? Like, if you've got goals to earn more money, if you've got goals to be in better shape, to be fitter and healthier, if you've got goals to be a more positive, productive person, a happier, healthier person, and on all those goals, you're trying to do it alone, who are you kidding? You're not superhuman. Like, with all the best positive psychology in the world, that's a really unrealistic expectation that you're going to smash all your goals doing it all alone. You need to get help. You need to delegate some of the jobs. You need support. But most importantly, you need to be around other people that are applying themselves, other people that have adopted these positive habits, that are being consistent when you're being a yo-yo. So if that means getting around groups, communities, paying for coaches, accountability buddies, friends, those kind of things, do it. Get help. Because that's going to make a huge difference. Imagine the difference if I, over here, have got my goals and I'm paying for a business mentor, which I am. I'm paying for a personal trainer, which I am. I've got a team that I've built around me in my businesses, which I have, which ranges from admin people, accountants, financial advisors, sales staff, marketing staff, videographers, editors, poster designers. Like, if I've got all this team and I'm investing in getting help, and I'm also a therapist that I see, if I'm doing that and you want to achieve the same sort of goals with me, just saying theoretically, I don't mean that you do, but if you did, and you're going to do it totally alone for the next 12 months, and I'm going to build this power team, and I'm going to be putting myself out there asking for people's help, come on, it's a no-brainer. Who's going to do better? Who's going to get further quicker? And who's going to have a much easier, better process than slogging it out alone? So that's the sixth piece of advice. If you feel like you've fallen off track, if you've lost motivation, if you've lost momentum, ask yourself, how much of it are you trying to do alone? And how much of it could you get help? And obviously, those of you that have been following me, you know that I offer a lot of help. I've got the free podcast that can help. Tune in, subscribe, listen to it on YouTube. No, watch it on YouTube. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. There's free content that I'm doing every single week, and I'm committed to doing that. So I'm there for you for free every week. Monday, there's a podcast. Monday night, there's a live on Facebook. Wednesday, there's a podcast. Throughout the week, there's sporadic bits of content that I do. There's 5-day challenges that I do every year. Use all of that. Subscribe to the podcast. Focus on being there. Remember this, when you least want to hear my voice and you least want to be around positivity, that's when you need it the most. That's when you need it the most. So it's about having the discipline to go, right, I'm in a bad mood, I'm feeling demotivated, I'm negative, but I'm going to get out and I'm going to get some steps in. Whilst I go out and I get my body moving and get the endorphins released, I'm going to put a podcast on, or I'm going to listen to something on a YouTube channel, whatever. Get help. And it doesn't have to cost you money. If they're the things that you're going to do them. If you want the next level of help, pay for help. Those of you know that I do coaching, message me if you think I could be a good coach for you. Do you think I could help? We can book a one-to-one session. We can do a month's coaching. But I would say the cheapest way that you can get a high level of support is just join the Success School membership. As all of you know, it's completely free to join for a 2-week trial. If you think it's valuable, it's only £19 a month. Get help. We've got a WhatsApp group. We've got accountability in that WhatsApp group. We've got 2 Zoom calls happening this week at the time of recording. Anybody that's watching this live now, I'm sure most of you will have felt a certain way at the beginning. If you've been watching this for 5-6 minutes or more, I'm sure that will have started to make you go, yeah, do you know what? There is a point to that. Maybe that's going to help me. Maybe I do need to do that. By deciding to watch this video and stick with it, that's you asking for help. That's you committed to putting your time and energy into getting some inspiration, getting some tips, getting some advice. But don't let that slip. So I really, really hope you found this useful. If you're watching on the live, please do me a favor. Please give me some feedback. Let me know in the comments. What is the biggest takeaway from this episode that you are going to be committed to focusing on moving forward? Because remember, just listening alone, just consuming information alone, it's not enough. You got to act on that information. Okay? Knowledge without application is not power. It is potential power. The thing that gives it power is the commitment to act on the knowledge. So I'm going to do a quick recap. So here were the 6 steps. Number 1 was to shift the mindset. Quit that all or nothing approach and instead start to allow yourself maximum 48 hours of letting those bad habits slip, but have that non-negotiable. 48 hours is the maximum. Number 2, make the bad habits harder to do by eliminating what are the triggers. By identifying what are the triggers and then by eliminating those triggers. So those triggers might be people, might be environments, might be physical things you've got around you, might be things you watch on television. There might be social media accounts that you follow and things like that. Identify what they are, remove them. Number 3 is reduce stress. The times where people have started to quit good habits and bring in bad habits are almost always when their stress levels have increased, when they're taking on more than they can do, when they're scared to say no, so they just say yes, 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 and now they're too busy and now they're stressed. Get serious about this point. Look at the unnecessary stresses that you've got in your life. Reduce them as best as you can. Be honest about that. Number 4, rather than trying to bring in all the good habits, just pick 1 or maybe 2 and commit for maybe just a couple of weeks to just stick to those 1 or 2 things. Make it manageable, make it simple, make it sustainable. And in doing that, make sure you add some level of accountability. Number 5, really put an emphasis on your identity, your beliefs about who you are and who you want to value being, who you want to be. Okay? Rather than just focusing on the goal, the achievement you want, and the process, the habits. It's important to know the goal. It's important to know the habits. But the most important thing to really focus on is this, your mindset, is your beliefs about who you are, who you want to be, and what it is you value. Number 6 is get help. Do not do this alone. Get mentors, get coaches, get accountability buddies, friends, join communities, memberships, courses, go to events. These are the kind of things. Let me know in the comments, how did you find this? Again, thank you so much, every single one of you that has joined me, whether that be on the live on TikTok, the live on Facebook, whether it be listening on the podcast or watching on YouTube. I appreciate you all. Thank you so much for your time. Hope you found this useful. and I will see you soon. Take care, everybody.